It's dark, it's cold, and it is barely explored. Well, we are all familiar with these three things about the deep sea. But here's what you probably don't know. We've only mapped 10% of the ocean floor. The rest? A black void of crushing pressure, bizarre life forms, and things that defy every logic. This isn't just some deeper part of the ocean where it's a little chilly and the fish look a bit creepy. Down there, nature stopped making sense a very long time ago. Fish with transparent heads, creatures that eat bones from the inside out, entire regions where light simply doesn't exist. And the worst part? Scientists keep stumbling on things that should not exist. So before you get too comfortable, here are 15 things you really don't want to know about the deep sea. Number 15, about 2/3 of marine life remain unidentified. We like to think we've got a solid grasp on the world's creatures, but when it comes to the ocean, we're just guessing. Right now, we've identified around 250,000 marine species, which sounds impressive until you realize that's just a fraction of what's actually out there. The problem? We don't actually know how many species exist in the first place. For years, estimates ranged anywhere from 1 million to 10 million species. More recent studies put it closer to 1 million, meaning we've cataloged maybe 1/3, hence the commonly thrown around 2/3 remain undiscovered. But even that is just a mathematical estimate. Scientists use species discovery rates and taxonomic models to produce these numbers, and honestly, it's all a bit of statistical hand-waving. Realistically, we won't know how many species exist until we find them. And at our current rate, that could take another century. Until then, the deep sea remains a mystery box, one we keep prying open, only to find even weirder creatures inside. Number 14. No one knows what made this sound. If you've spent any time on the internet, you've probably heard about the bloop, a bizarre, ultra-loud sound detected in 1997 that sent conspiracy theorists and Lovecraft fans into overdrive. Was it a massive, undiscovered sea creature? Cthulhu waking up? Is some horrifying deep-sea monster breaking through the ocean floor? It was nice, just ice. As NOAA and Oregon State University seismologist Robert Giac explained, the bloop was simply an ice quake, the sound of ice breaking apart in Antarctica. Each year, thousands of these occur as glaciers crack and melt, creating massive, eerie noises that travel across the ocean. So why did people think it was a creature? Well, the bloop had a unique frequency signature that, to the untrained ear, resembled biological sounds. But scientists always suspected it was ice. The theory that it was some deep-sea behemoth was pure fantasy. Great for sci-fi, but not for reality. Sorry, Cthulhu fans. Number 13. About 90% of the ocean is still unmapped. Every time someone mentions how little of the ocean we've mapped, they show a map of the ocean, which is, a bit contradictory. The real issue isn't that we haven't mapped the ocean, it's that we haven't mapped it at a high enough resolution. Right now, most ocean maps come from satellite data, which gives us a rough idea of what's down there, but only at a 20 to 50 kilometer resolution. That's like trying to map a city with a crayon. If we want real detail, we need sonar mapping, which involves ships dragging sonar equipment across the seafloor. And that's where the 125-year estimate comes in. A study calculated that if we wanted to fully map the ocean at a 200-meter resolution, which is incredibly detailed, it would take over a century. But with advancing satellite tech, we'll probably get there way sooner, without having to drag sonar across every inch of the planet. Number 12. Mysterious rivers and lakes under the ocean. This one shouldn't be on a list of things we don't know, because we do know about it, and it's incredible. Underwater rivers and lakes aren't some unsolved deep-sea mystery. They exist, they've been photographed, and they might just be one of the coolest natural phenomena on Earth. These lakes form when supersaline water, known as brine, pools at the seafloor. It happens when seawater dissolves ancient salt deposits, creating brine pools that are so dense they don't mix with regular seawater. The result? Rivers, lakes, and even waterfalls beneath the ocean, some stretching for tens of kilometers. But before you imagine fish swimming around in these mini oceans, think again. These pools are so salty that most marine life instantly dies upon contact. The only survivors? Hardy microbes thrive in extreme environments and, in some cases, specialized brine-dwelling mussels with symbiotic bacteria. We don't know everything about these pools, like why some have mussels and others don't, but the fact that we do know they exist makes them even more fascinating. Number 11. Colossal squid. For a creature we've never seen alive, we actually know a lot about the colossal squid. And yes, it absolutely deserves its name. First discovered in 1925 from tentacles found inside a sperm whale's stomach, the colossal squid is heavier and bulkier than its famous relative, the giant squid. Unlike the giant squid, which relies on suckers, the colossal squid has rotating, razor-sharp hooks on its tentacles. Scientists estimate it can grow over 40 feet long, weigh half a ton, and spend its life lurking in the pitch-black depths around Antarctica. Despite its terrifying size, it's not an agile hunter. Unlike the lightning-fast giant squid, the colossal squid is more of an ambush predator, lying in wait for unsuspecting fish. But its biggest enemy? Sperm whales. These massive whales eat so many colossal squid that 77% of their diet consists of them. And here's the fun fact. Unlike many other squids, colossal squid don't have specialized mating organs. That means they likely mate the old-fashioned way, with an actual squid penis. Science is weird. Number 10. Unknown underwater waterfalls. Another deep-sea mystery that isn't actually a mystery. Underwater waterfalls, also called cascades, are well documented, and we know exactly how they form. The largest underwater waterfalls happen when cold, dense water meets warmer, lighter water. Because cold water is heavier, it sinks, creating massive, slow-moving waterfalls beneath the ocean's surface. And we're not talking about tiny trickles. Some of these cascades dwarf any waterfall on land. The biggest one? The Denmark Strait Cataract, between Greenland and Iceland. This underwater waterfall is over 3,500 meters high, 3 times taller than Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall on land. Scientists aren't just studying these cascades for fun. They play a crucial role in ocean circulation, moving nutrients and oxygen across the deep sea. But as climate change affects ocean temperatures, some of these cascades are slowing down, which could have devastating consequences for marine life that depends on them. So, while we may not have mapped every single underwater waterfall, we definitely know they exist, and they're just as fascinating as anything on land. Number 9. There's enough salt in the ocean to cover the Earth. If we could take all the salt in the ocean and spread it evenly over the Earth's land surface, we'd be living under a 500-foot thick layer of salt, about the height of a 40-story skyscraper. So yeah, the ocean is salty. But where does all that salt come from? Most of it starts on land. Rain erodes rocks, carrying minerals like sodium and chloride into rivers, which eventually dump them into the sea. Over hundreds of millions of years, the ocean has become a giant salt reservoir. Hydrothermal vents on the seafloor also spew mineral-rich fluids, adding even more salt to the mix. Despite all this, the ocean isn't getting saltier. Salt is constantly cycling in and out. Some sink to the seafloor, some get trapped in marine organisms, and some even get locked into evaporating salt flats. The result? A perfectly balanced, yet ridiculously salty ocean. Number 8. The ocean floor is moving beneath our feet. If you thought the ocean floor was just a giant, motionless seabed, think again. The ocean floor is constantly shifting, forming new crust while swallowing old crust back into the Earth's interior. This process, known as plate tectonics, is what keeps our planet geologically active. At the heart of this movement is the mid-ocean ridge system, a chain of underwater mountains where tectonic plates are pulling apart. As they separate, magma rises, cools, and forms a new oceanic crust. This means the seafloor is growing in some areas while getting recycled into the Earth's mantle at subduction zones. But it's not just about rocks. This movement creates hydrothermal vents, where superheated water and minerals spew from the seafloor, supporting bizarre, alien-like ecosystems. Some of these life forms survive purely on chemicals, with no need for sunlight, proof that life doesn't always play by the rules. Number 7. Many deep-sea creatures glow in the dark. The deep ocean is pitch black, so how do creatures survive? By making their own light. This phenomenon, known as bioluminescence, is one of nature's most bizarre survival tactics. Some fish, like the anglerfish, use glowing lures to trick prey into coming closer, only to swallow them whole. Other creatures, like certain squid, release bioluminescent ink, creating a glowing distraction while they escape. Even microscopic organisms like plankton, flashlight when disturbed, confuse predators or warn others of danger. Bioluminescence is so common in the deep sea that scientists believe it might be the most widespread form of communication on Earth. And here's the kicker. These creatures don't just glow for survival. Some use light to find mates, signal warnings, or even camouflage themselves in the open ocean. In the deep sea, where light is non-existent, the creatures have brought their own. Number 6. The ocean is the world's biggest museum. Museums hold priceless artifacts, but the real collection? It's at the bottom of the ocean. The sea floor is littered with millions of shipwrecks, lost treasures, and relics from every era of human history. Off the coast of Florida alone, there are over 1,000 shipwrecks. Worldwide, experts estimate there could be 3 million or more, ranging from ancient Roman trade ships to World War II battleships. Some wrecks are perfectly preserved thanks to the ocean's cold, oxygen-starved depths, turning them into eerie time capsules. And it's not just ships. Entire ancient cities have been swallowed by rising seas. Places like Pavlopetri in Greece, one of the world's oldest known submerged cities, are still being explored. So while museums give us a curated look at history, the ocean is holding on to stories we haven't even discovered yet, and some may never be found. Number 5. The world's longest mountain chain is underwater. The mid-ocean ridge is the longest mountain chain on Earth, but most people have never heard of it. Why? Because it's almost entirely underwater. Stretching 40,390 miles, it's 10 times longer than the Andes and encircles the planet like a hidden spine. This colossal chain is formed by tectonic activity, where the Earth's plates are slowly pulling apart. As they move, magma rises to create a new ocean floor, building massive underwater mountains in the process. Some parts of the ridge even reach the surface, like Iceland, which sits right on top of it. But here's the wildest part. We've explored less of these mountains than the surface of Venus or the dark side of the moon. Despite their size, they remain one of Earth's greatest mysteries, hiding ecosystems and geological processes we're only beginning to understand. Now let's move to number 4. Coral produces its own sunscreen. Coral reefs are stunning, but they're also fragile. One of their biggest threats? Too much sunlight. Coral relies on algae for food, but excess sun exposure can damage these microscopic partners, leading to coral bleaching. So, how does coral fight back? By making its own sunscreen. When exposed to intense sunlight, corals fluoresce, producing special protective proteins that act like a UV shield for their algae. This glowing effect not only helps corals survive, but also makes for some of the most breathtaking underwater displays. Unfortunately, this defense mechanism isn't enough against rising ocean temperatures. Climate change is pushing corals past their limits, leading to mass bleaching events worldwide. Without urgent action, some of the planet's most vibrant ecosystems could disappear. But for now, these tiny sun-blocking warriors continue to fight for survival, one fluorescent glow at a time. Number 3. A single iceberg could supply 1 million people with water for 5 years. If you're ever really thirsty, just grab an iceberg. No, seriously. An average large Antarctic iceberg holds over 20 billion gallons of fresh water, enough to hydrate 1 million people for 5 years. That's an absurd amount of drinkable water just floating around, slowly melting into the sea. At one point, a company in the United Arab Emirates thought, why not tow one over? Their plan was to drag an iceberg thousands of miles to the UAE to solve water shortages. But, unsurprisingly, this ambitious project quietly disappeared. Logistics aside, the idea isn't completely ridiculous. Icebergs are pure freshwater, and since they're already melting, some scientists argue that harvesting them makes more sense than letting billions of gallons go to waste. Number 2. The ocean isn't blue because of the sky. Let's clear this up once and for all. The ocean is not blue because it reflects the sky. That's just a myth. The real reason? Science. Water naturally absorbs colors in the red spectrum of light, acting like a massive filter. This leaves behind colors in the blue spectrum, which is why the ocean appears blue. But here's the fun part. Water isn't always blue. Depending on the depth, clarity, and what's floating around, the ocean can turn green, red, or even brown. Ever noticed how shallow tropical waters look crystal clear, while the deep ocean is a rich, dark blue? That's because blue light penetrates deeper, while other colors get absorbed faster. More particles in the water, more color variation. So no, the ocean doesn't just mirror the sky. It has its own physics-defying way of bending light. Number 1. Most volcanic eruptions happen underwater. Think volcanic eruptions are rare. Think again. While land volcanoes get all the Hollywood-level attention, the real action is happening underwater. Around 80% of all volcanic eruptions occur beneath the ocean's surface, completely out of sight. The ocean floor is littered with 1 million-plus volcanoes, though most are inactive. The ones that do erupt create superheated vents that blast scorching water into the deep sea. But instead of destruction, these vents fuel life. Entire ecosystems of bizarre, heat-loving creatures thrive here, surviving off chemicals instead of sunlight. Some of these underwater volcanoes are massive, like Tamu Massif, a submarine volcano the size of New Mexico. Others form new islands, like what's happening near Tonga. The catch? We barely monitor most of them, meaning eruptions happen all the time without us even noticing. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.